back to our top story. Nicholas Maduro and his wife and I believe 4 other people taken in the early morning hours locally, I think around 2 o'clock this morning in Venezuela. Venezuelan President Nicholas Maduro and his wife have arrived actually in New York now. They have not deplaned yet, but they have arrived at a military base there. Will, I guess, be taken to a federal facility in Brooklyn to face some criminal charges, among them some narco-terrorism charges. This was a U.S.-led, carried-out military operation. Joining us now live is Loyola Law School adjunct professor Ethan Berman. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Larry.
All right, so regarding this indictment against Nicholas Maduro, as a head of state, can Maduro claim immunity? And if so, can that hold up?
Well, here's the thing. He can claim anything he wants, and he'll probably try and claim immunity. However, we have precedent here in the United States where he will not succeed. It's extremely unlikely he'll succeed on that immunity argument because the United States government hasn't even recognized him as the head of state of Venezuela because of alleged fraud in the 2018 and 2024 elections. So it's called the non-recognition doctrine. Furthermore, the judicial branch, the courts themselves will give deference to the executive branch for that designation. So the odds of him succeeding on any immunity claim is highly unlikely.
Could international pressure? I mean, a lot of countries have there's been a lot of backlash from countries about this operation. Could international pressure on that turn that the other way?
It's extremely unlikely because while this appears on its face to violate a section of United Nations law, of the Charter, the ICC, the International Criminal Court, they do not have any binding authority over the United States. And this administration in particular is shown itself not to give much, if any, deference to outside bodies such as the UN or the ICC. But one more thing, Larry, that I want to add in here. We have precedent that is somewhat similar, but really on point. It's the United States versus Noriega from 1992. Remember Manuel Noriega from Panama? Well, our courts upheld that we could try him, even though he claimed to be the head of state, but the United States said he was not a legitimate head of state, and that held up and is now precedent in our courts.
All right, Maduro facing, as mentioned, narco-terrorism conspiracy charges. Some legal experts say this is beyond even the most high-profile historical examples of aggressive American actions toward autocratic governments in Panama, Iraq, and beyond. Is there a legal basis for the U.S. to take another country's leader without an extradition treaty?
Sure. There's something called the Kerr-Frisbee Doctrine, and that relates to 2 cases dating back to 1886, the other one 1952, where the courts here in the United States have determined that even when, in the case of 1886, essentially a bounty hunter or a messenger, allegedly, was sent to retrieve somebody in Peru, doesn't matter. The United States courts, once they're within the jurisdiction of the courts, have the right to prosecute these people. And at least under the Kerr-Frisbee Doctrine, there is one exception to that. And it's called the Toscanino exception, but that's when it shocks the conscience, the actions of government officials. I think it's going to be really hard to find very many people who are going to be sympathetic to Maduro in this case and would find that it shocks the conscience based on the allegations against him, especially with the complex narco trafficking, allegedly in the indictment up to 250 tons of cocaine a year that these people allegedly participated in the transport of. They're in big trouble, and I don't think it looks good for them in the courts here.
I think you've answered the question already, but I'm going to ask it. Is this a violation of the War Powers Act and international law?
Well, I mean, the question of the War Powers Act really has to do with the targeting of the alleged narco boats that we were attacking in the Caribbean and in the Pacific, which is a separate topic of bringing Nicholas Maduro himself to the United States to face charges. And and one of the people that I think you left off naming that at least is named in the indictment is Maduro's son as well, who was a member of the National Assembly. I find this to be a very, very difficult uphill climb for the defense attorneys that will be representing these individuals in this case.
Do you think the U.S. will be compelled, because of the War Powers Act, to show evidence that these were indeed drug boats?
Well, in that circumstance, I think it's possible that Congress will continue with investigations, although I find it hard to believe that a Republican-led House would lead that kind of investigation as of now. But after the midterms, depending on what happens, I could see that there would be some serious investigations, and this administration might have to put up some of that evidence.
If he and these others, including his wife, are found guilty, what kind of potential sentences are we looking at here? I mean, 3 of the 4 charges carry minimum 10 or more year sentences. The firearm count alone is a mandatory 30. What's your take on that?
Yeah. So look, they're facing what are essentially life sentences. These aren't 20-year-olds that are being arrested in this case and being charged. They're effectively facing life sentences. The only charge that is at the discretion of the judge is the conspiracy charge related to the firearms and explosives. But again, that's not even the primary charges in this case. That's number 4 out of 4 of the counts. So yeah, these are basically life sentences if they're found guilty on even one of the counts.
Does the vice president of the country, now that Maduro is out, and he is, I guess, still, some not recognizing him as the leader of Venezuela, the vice president, does she have the right to take control of the country? And how does the U.S. play in that?
Well, I mean, so the president announced today that the United States is going to be taking over, essentially management, caretaking Venezuela while this is being sorted out. I don't know the laws of Venezuela to specifically address whether or not the vice president would be the right person and the next in line to take over the government there, but it would sure seem so in light of the 2024 election and in light of the recent Nobel Peace Prize and the Trump administration's shown interest in at least the person I can't remember his name right now. I apologize. Who won the 2024 election and the vice president? That would appear to be the case. And the Trump administration really is in charge of Venezuela right now.
All right, a lot yet to play out. Loyola Law School adjunct professor Ethan Bierman, thanks so much for taking time out. We appreciate it.